What's up, friends? It is your girl, Sarah from Sarah Styles here. I cannot tell you how excited I am for this YouTube Live. One, I have not been on a YouTube Live. I've done them here and there in the past couple of months, but regularly and having guests on and things that are happening in the community. And right now, if you guys are resellers, you know Whatnot is like big in the community. Should you be on it? Lots of high influencers or big influencers are on there crushing it. Hustlebee is one of them. I would consider him a big influencer, and he's definitely crushing it. But I also wanted to have different perspectives on as well. People who have tried it, people who are still trying to get to that level that Ken is on, and questions for you guys as well. If you have back end questions, how does this work? How do you get in? All of those, we are here for it. So before we kind of get into all of that, as we wait for people to hop on, I have a couple of housekeeping things to go over. If you guys are here, let me know who's here in the chat. I love engaging with everybody. Kendra and Tori and Ken will also be in the chat engaging as well if you have questions specifically for them. So definitely drop those questions. Let me know if you're here and if you sell on Whatnot or not. I'm looking like kind of weirdly on my camera. Let me move it. Okay, so a couple of things before we get into it. I was on the eBay for Business podcast today. So if you guys listen to the eBay for Business podcast, I highly recommend it, not just because I was on today, but it is a great resource. They're always talking about current things and updates that are happening. They get questions that come in. I always learn something when I watch it. So I did put that as a link pinned to the top of the chat as well as in the description down below. My session, but then the podcast all together. And then the eBay Open is coming up. So I know this is about Whatnot, but resellers in general, the eBay Open is coming up next week. I am presenting on tools and analytics, and Ken is actually, I'm always backwards. Ken is presenting on social media for resellers as well. So definitely check that out. If you aren't registered, they will be putting everything on their eBay for Business YouTube, which I have linked down below as well. I learn something every time that I go, and I kind of appreciate that it's virtual so that I can do it in between picking kids up and all of that. Definitely worth it. Even if you've been reselling for a while, there's lots of good information that comes out of that. I have a big announcement coming tomorrow. If you guys follow my channel, you saw that I have a premiere tomorrow, I think at like maybe 2:30. So definitely head on over and hit the notification for that. I'll be in the chat for the big announcement. I'm super excited. I've been contemplating doing something for a while and decided to just pull the trigger, and super excited to share what that is with you guys as well. And then one other thing, if you look down below, there's a new button for you guys if you want to become a member. That is an option now with a couple different tiers. So let's get into it. Let me jump over to the chat, see who's here, and then we will introduce everyone on the panel. So Girly Girl Styles is going to be, Tori is right there. If you guys don't follow Tori, please do. Her and her husband are like some of my favorite people in the world. Rosie is here at Thrifting, aka Thrifting Babe. We met her last week as well. Ken and I did at the eBay headquarters. Anna's, I'm not even going to try and say her name. Does anyone? Ken, do you know how to say it?
Anesthetic.
Yeah, but then it's miscellany. Yeah, I don't know. But she's amazing. Anna, yes. Anna, that's her name on social media, and then as well as I think her store. She has an amazing book. I have it right here. I don't know what I did with it, but she wrote a book on eBay. So Anna, I'll let you put that in the chat. It's an amazing book on taking your time back and creating efficiencies. She has like 12,000 items, I think, on eBay listed. So definitely she knows her stuff. So she'll put that. I'll have her, if she's still on, put that in the chat if you guys are interested in that. Okay, so we're already getting things. Super hard platform, worst reselling experience so far, following required. So this is interesting because I want to get into this because I think we're not seeing this perspective so much on social media. Let's see. 7th Floor Closet here. Hello, welcome so much. Ginger Marvin, she's a Colorado person too. We've gone thrifting before. Definitely check out her channel. She does amazing what sold videos almost daily. Sarah, are you getting into Whatnot? Currently, I'm not. We'll see what happens by the end of this if I decide if I want to or not. We're getting straight to it. Let's get straight into it. We're getting people wanting to talk about it. Let's get into it. I'm going to have everybody introduce yourself, a little bit background, maybe how long you've been reselling, what platforms you've been selling on, and then maybe just a high level experience with Whatnot, whether you're currently on, you're not on anymore, kind of your experience with it as of right now.
Who's going first?
Oh, sorry. We'll go. We'll start with Kendra.
All right, I'm Kendra. I do have a YouTube channel and an Instagram, and I recently started like social media a little bit more. But I do think that my experience on Whatnot, because I've recently started doing social media, has had a big impact on how I sell on Whatnot. It's slow. I'm not gonna lie, and like I had some big influencers of mine that got me into it. They thought it was a good way to spread my wings. I'm primarily sell on eBay. And I've tried it and I'm in the middle about how I feel about it. I know that it's like any other platform. In order for you to grab your audience, you have to do it consistently. Um, but it is kind of a it's kind of a negative feeling knowing that some of the stuff I'm selling my items for, I can get way more on eBay for it.
Mhm.
And that can be very discouraging. I do like the live features that Whatnot has to offer. I just think that it's a lot more fun to communicate and get on a one-on-one level with the people that you're selling your stuff to. You get to learn about what they want to see more of, and it's just good to have this like same people come back and come and buy from you. It's a good feeling. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna say that followers is you're definitely gonna have followers, and you definitely got to be consistent. And my issue right now is that it's hard to consistently have 20 and 30 item shows on Whatnot and get that much inventory, and still have enough inventory to spread out to my eBay store and continue to make money.
So if you have a lot of inventory. I'm making notes because you touched on quite a few things and I saw everyone nodding. So I'm going to touch on those. And I actually want to take it back a step. It seems like most of the people who are watching or who are in the chat know what Whatnot is. But if someone wants to, because I've kind of been following from afar. So if someone wants to jump in and kind of give just like a high level what it is. So if people are just joining and getting in, they kind of know what we're talking about.
Right, so I guess I'll take that. My name's Ken, the Hustle Bee on Instagram. I've been started my reselling journey on eBay, mostly sneakers and streetwear category. So this Whatnot app, never really heard of it until Glenn the Hustler actually told me about it, that YouTubers are talking about it. I actually don't follow a lot of reselling YouTubers. I don't consume that kind of content, so it was brought up. So I was just, my influence was just coming from a friend that's like, hey, I think this is a cool platform. And so Whatnot is a live selling auction app. It's not only auction, and there is other buy it now features as well. But think about this as Instagram Live with the capability of actually purchasing through that live. So that's kind of like the high level of it. You just pretty much turn on the camera. I mean, it's just the basics of it, right? And then sell something, show it. People usually an auction bid, right? So my experience with Whatnot, I started end of March. My point of view of it was I wanted to try something different. I haven't really tried anything different seriously and just kind of like go all in since we started eBay. My philosophy is focus on one, kill it on one, and then possibly branch out. So this is my possibly branch out moment. I never really looked at it as a money making as of the get go. I actually expected to lose money from a thing. There's this thing of called of that they call it cost of acquisition, right, of customer. So for me, I gave up $200 item for a giveaway, a sneaker, and right off the rip, I had like 350 uh, viewers on my first live, and with promotions behind it, right, on Instagram stories. So I really didn't have anything because I've only like been in the app like a week. I got approved and then I went live. So I didn't have any direct feedback or coaching yet from other people.
When did
So
it, if any of you
but
guys know, when did it start? So you both started like in March. Is it like brand new then, or is it
so
around,
the app has been is on now like 2 years. I'm going to 3 years. It started
but I
on
feel like
card
this year it's got
sporting
it.
cards category, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Sneakers was started fall last year. So it's not even a year old for sneakers category and
Okay. Because I
streetwear.
feel like it's really like come into population in the past year.
Yes, correct. Which is mainstream influencers and stuff like that, which is what we hear, right? We're on the eBay clothing sneaker, so we got impacted by the ads and the influencers off the gate. But
Right.
2 years ago, it's been creating massive havoc in the card category, cards and sports cards.
Oh, that makes sense because I would not come across
Right.
that.
So we won't have any direct, so but now if you look at like YouTubers talking about it, they were the launch. So So
Okay.
and then now they're so yeah, that's what I do. That's I think the short run through with what the app is.
Okay. We will get to Tori, and then we're already getting questions, and I have a whole slew of
Yes.
questions. So, Tori, if you want to introduce yourself, I'm going to give Tori a real quick shout out because if you guys follow my channel, you've seen Tori multiple times on for many different reasons. Her and her husband are definitely one of my favorite people. We've never met in person, but just the care that they have for the world and what they do is just definitely follow her on social media, all platforms. She's just he's not here, but they are some of the best people that you will ever meet on the internet. Go ahead, Tori. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Aren't we past that now? Aren't we past that, telling people they're on mute? Anyway, how do I follow that, Sarah? Thank you so much. That's so sweet. So kind of my background, I have been reselling since I was like little, right? Like before it was even online or anything. And then in 2018, I started Poshmark. So I'm not an eBay person. And I know that's kind of shocking to a lot of people, but Ken, you said something, you focus on one platform and you kill it and before you move on to something else. And that's kind of the way that we focused on it. We've branched out here and there, but we really did the Poshmark thing. And what we used to do, and I do have a YouTube channel, and I have a pretty big social media following on TikTok and, you know, those type of things. And what we used to find is we would do a ton of YouTube lives and do thrift hauls. And with those live thrift hauls, we would make a ton of sales, either people going to Poshmark and purchasing or reaching out directly to get maybe a better deal. And we loved it. We loved the community. We loved the way that it worked. So when Whatnot reached out to me and said, hey, we are changing things a little, and I had never heard of it at all. And they said, hey, we are looking for resellers to come in and sell more of like clothing or handmade goods. And I was interested, but then I was like, okay, I don't have time to focus. And then just like Ken said, as soon as I started seeing it with people that I recognize, I don't follow and I don't consume a lot of reseller content either online. But when I started seeing people talk about it, I was like, maybe I should dive in. So I did, tried it. It wasn't the same as YouTube Lives. It didn't have the same feeling. And I definitely did not have an overwhelmingly great experience, I will say. It wasn't horrible that I would never do it again, but it was, you know, it didn't feel like it was worth my time, honestly. And that's not that I won't do it again, but the average sale price, the time it took to ship, the time it took to prep, that was a little hard. So that's kind of where my opinion is on Whatnot. But I think that there is so much potential out there. It just really depends on what you're doing.
And that's, so there's someone did ask, am I on it? And I haven't done it, but me and Tori are fairly similar in their numbers and time and how we look at things. And I'm getting that sense in talking to other people and doing research on what it really is before even jumping in, that it would not produce the outcome for me, at least short term. I think maybe, and this is with anything that you do, you put the time into it, you might get there eventually. But like Kendra, to Kendra's point, you know, she's been putting the time in and doesn't have, and this is what I'm going to get to next, is what I heard from everybody is social media following. And what I've been thinking in my head, you know, everyone that you're seeing that's crushing it are these big influencers. So one, I'm thinking they're getting paid to do this. And so they're getting, you know, they're getting paid to be on there and crush it and maybe inventory it, whatever it is, to really promote it, because that's how marketing works right now. You get these big influencers and it trickles down to the rest of us. So and I don't know if anyone can speak to that or in the chat as well, if that's kind of a little bit of what we're seeing. Not saying that it's bad. That's how social media marketing works right now. But we have to be mindful of, we're not all there. Like, I don't have $100,000 or 100,000 followers. And a lot of people, resellers that follow me, don't have social media at all. So as we were talking about social media, some people mentioned in the chat as well, I want to hear your guys' opinions. We're just going to jump in. You don't have to necessarily go around in an order, about social media being a prerequisite essentially for selling on Whatnot. And a large social media, I guess I would say.
So I'll speak to that just from what I've seen, because even though I haven't sold very much on there, I have been jumping into different shows, and I have jumped into people that have 4, you know, people attending, people that have 40. I mean, I wanted to see the whole thing. And initially my thought was, yes, you had to have a social media following to be successful. But I have seen a few smaller resellers that have actually built, that don't do social media, you know, and they have built their following over on Whatnot because they put in the time and the focus there. So I think that it can be beneficial for certain people, but I think that the smaller folks can also be successful, but you do have to work at it, I think.
What, I'm going to let you guys finish. I wrote down a question. I had another follow-up question to that. Does anyone else have anything to add?
For me, I think a social media, we call it social media, right? But it's actually a brand, right? You have a brand, right?
Yeah.
And for me, in my category, sneakers and streetwear, if you have a trending product, it would sell itself in any other platform you do. So for me, I don't think social media is a plus. I think it's an extra. But with great products, you do great. Like, so I am in a lot. I'm in a lot of women's thrift because like I shop for my wife. Fun fact: anything that you see my wife wear is I shopped it. Anything cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like all
You
her
guys
outfits
don't
for
know, I'm
eBay.
giving
All
JC
her outfits for eBay thing. I shop all that all and whatnot.
Oh, well, congrats, Kat. She was so cute.
So
at
what I
the
actually noticed, if you have good brand, you will always have people in that stream. Like put Lululemon, whether it's a clickbait or not, right? And then let the people really attest to it if it's real, right? Lululemon, branded items, you'll bring the people. And I
So
think that's what's different within the sneaker category. People Jordan ones, hype items like $3,000 shoes. You eventually bring, and also too on the other end, people that don't have money just wants to watch it and see how much it goes for. So
But
now
do you
there's
get
that.
anything from people watching?
No, I mean, but it actually, like when you have more people in your room, it's actually more attractive to somebody, right?
Right,
Like
right. But it's not
okay,
like YouTube. If more people watch, you get paid for
right,
it.
like there's more people, right? So it's attractive, right? So I go in, and if you have a decent stream, right, not terrible, I always say like this platform with good product and decent performance, you'll do great. But put it on any other platform, put a decent photo, I'll beat you anytime, right? Because all of a sudden there's no human factor or like talent factor to it.
Yeah.
So I think that's my take on it. Like if I would start from scrap, going to Tori's point, Whatnot would be the best starting platform right now to build a brand, because then you could be so personable and you have that face-to-face thing factor that you're not gonna please everybody, but you're gonna please somebody, and that way, that's where you gain brand loyalty. And also too, in a bigger perspective, over in Asia, live streaming has took over the selling platforms there, and I've seen it happen even with my friends in the Philippines. They actually just go live on Instagram and Facebook, and they do Cash App, and then they literally send it. It's because of a strong brand that they did. They don't even need a platform to facilitate the shipping for them.
So I
So for
think,
me, that's my take on that one.
and this is why you guys will find out that I spent a week with Ken and came home and was like, well, obviously I have to sell on it, because he like definitely like really makes you think about it. And like that whole gimmick, I was like, well, duh, like why wouldn't you be on it? So but I think he has a lot of points. And I think one of the things too is like your brand. If you are a seller who wants a brand, definitely starting out there, or even if you already have a brand, it could be a great way to interact. If you're someone who doesn't, I mean, not everybody likes that or wants to have a brand, they just want essentially like a garage sale on eBay, it may not be the place. That's was a terrible way to say it, but you know what I mean. It may not be the place for them. Kendra, I want your take, and we can see Anne said here basically what Ken was saying. She put in the chat as before he had said it. But Kendra, what's kind of your take on it? Because I think probably out of everyone's social media following, yours is the smallest. You are on social media, but yours would probably be the smallest. So I'm interested to hear your perspective.
Yep, I've recently started my social media. My YouTube I've been on for a year, but I'm not consistent by any means at all. And Instagram, I just started a business Instagram to keep my personal stuff separate, because I realized that I was deterring a lot of people that was interested in my reselling away from myself because I was putting too many personal things in there. I'm going to go ahead and disagree with a couple of things that Ken said, just in my own opinion, just from the experiences that I've had. So I used to get wholesale Lululemon from a local buyer from here. And I used to pay $5 to $10 a piece. And I decided when I jumped on Whatnot that I was going to sell Lululemon. I always tell myself, now that I've experienced it on Whatnot, not to short yourself, because you might not always get a big following. And as a Whatnot, so I source on Whatnot, and I try to source from the little guys that aren't doing that well. And I actually find that a smaller audience on a single live is more attractive than a larger one, because I don't think I'm going to get as good of a deal as one might think you would if you had a bigger following. So I tend to support the little people, and you can bid up so you know that you're paying for a good deal. But I do find that if you have a very small audience, regardless if you're selling Lululemon, I made the mistake right in the beginning, and I sold a lot of luxury items like Veronica beards, some runway stuff. I had never picked up Louis Vuitton until recently. I bought a storage unit, and I was like, I'm going to sell it and Whatnot. And I made $25 on it. And I honored it, and I just sent it out because I thought this item was going to get racked up, dollar, and then it didn't. And I lost out. I'm not going to say my number, but I definitely think that comparative to what I could have sold it on eBay for, I lost like a few $100s, maybe closer to like that $700-800. So I've kind of tuned it down to, instead of 2 shows a week, like 1 show, and that's if I have the product. But I have tried selling luxury and nice items on Whatnot, and I just don't get the following. And like, if I was consistent with it, maybe, but it's hard to be consistent with items that I know I could put on eBay and make $35 to $55 on them within like a couple of weeks. But I know that it's very appealing to some people. But yeah, just the experience that I've had on Whatnot, like, it makes me want to keep trying, but now I'm kind of in the middle with the products that I have. I've been trying to like advertise it more on my shorts, like on YouTube and Instagram. And I think that I have brought a few people over, because when you refer people to Whatnot and they sign up new with it and they use your credit, you get a $10 credit, they get a $10 credit. So I know that some of the people that I've told this about via Instagram and YouTube have followed me and come over. And then I consistently see regular names that come up from like watching YouTube or communicating with me on Instagram. I'm seeing them in my Whatnot shows too. So I do know that I do feel like you have to have somewhat of a following. But yeah, I do agree that you have to create your own brand, and your brand is yourself. So the more consistently you are, you gotta have a likable personality. I think I can be very monotone and boring sometimes, depending on the mood or how much coffee I haven't had. But I do try to keep it exciting. Yeah, there's always something going on in my house, so the background is always exciting. It's sometimes so, but I do feel like you are your own brand. You have to brand yourself as a person and by what you have. But just from experience. Sorry, go ahead.
Sarah,
I was just gonna say go ahead.
Let's I think preface the whole show and give the audience like what's big, right? Like what's big and what's small. Like I consider myself small, but you call me big here, right?
It's valid. Yeah, it's valid. If everyone wants to give.
So let's go around the table and see like what's your Whatnot following and just your Instagram following, right? So right now I have 24,000 followers on Instagram, organic growth, and then I have about 11,000 followers on Whatnot right now. And my typical live stream goes from 150 people to I've had 800 people in my live stream. So that's my perspective coming through this, right? So just go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Kendra.
So I have like 550 Instagram followers, like 500 YouTube followers, but then on Whatnot I have like 700 followers.
Oh, so that's interesting. So then you're building it on Whatnot and kind of doing the opposite. Instead of what we're seeing a lot of social media bringing it over, you're actually have more followers on Whatnot.
It actually took a shorter time to get that many followers on Whatnot. So I got that many followers in like 6 months versus like my Instagram I've had for like probably less than that. And then my YouTube I've had for over a year.
How many shows a week are you doing consistently to get that many followers though?
Since my wedding though, I've only had like 2. So since like beginning of August, I've only actually had like 2. But before that, I was consistently doing like 1 every Tuesday.
Okay, so once a week. Okay, and we're gonna get to, so there's lots of questions in the comments I'm gonna get to. Things I want to touch on too is like your time and your ASP, because we've all kind of touched on that, how much it is compared to some of the other platforms. Tori, I didn't want to cut you off, but I want people to know that there's lots of information still coming to kind of figure out if this is right for you. Tori, do you want to let us know what your following is?
Yeah, and with mine's even interesting because I've only done the one show on Whatnot. So my perspective again is from that different. I went on, I watched it a bunch, I tried it out, and that's how. So my Whatnot following is, I think, 257. I don't know because I don't ever look at it, but I keep every day I get a notice that someone's following me, and I think that's from social media because my social media, even though I'm not selling on there, I'm still getting people that are following me. Because I have like 7,600 on Insta, 7,600 on YouTube, or I don't know, and then 53,000 on TikTok. So
yeah,
I get
like low-key a superstar on TikTok.
But it's all crafting, just so everyone knows. It's not
but
reselling content.
Videos, and they're like in the millions now, and I'm like, go Tori! Like, I'm so excited for you.
So yeah, so mine is different because I'm not actively selling currently, but that also goes to the point. Because of my outside influence, I'm getting people that are coming in, like Kendra said, that are signing up or following.
So a couple of things that I've taken away from this I want to touch on, and then we're going to get to the chat and then come back with a couple other questions. A social media following maybe isn't necessary to convert over, but it is a brand, right? Like you're building a brand. It's not necessarily on eBay where you can put a listing up and someone's searching for it and it comes up whether you have a storefront or not, or you have a nice picture on eBay, even though eBay is like pushing that, and Poshmark, they kind of push that, but then it's weird because their algorithm isn't great. That's a whole nother life. But so you have to have a brand of some sorts, whether you bring it over or you start it from the beginning. And I liked what Ken said, because this was my take when I started eBay, was you have to put up that upfront cost. I forget what you called it, but putting in, and to me, it was like a marketing cost, right? Like eBay, it has all of these people to it. I don't have my own storefront where I would be spending money in advertising. So I discounted items. I lowered my ASP, whatever I could do. And I kind of thought of it as like a marketing expense for the first 6 months until I got things rolling on eBay. So for me, it was worth the investment. And I think anything that you do, you're probably, from a business standpoint, you have to be willing to maybe lose a little bit of money, break even, whatever it is. The struggle that I have with most people probably watching, as well as most of you, is we're not starting. We are successful or we're doing decent enough on Poshmark, eBay, Depop, all these other ones. And it's so new. Is it, and I want you guys to think about this and then we'll get to the chat. Is it worth that investment? Because it is a new platform and we don't know. You know, I think Ken probably is saying that he is making a lot of money, but, you know, Tori was like, maybe it's not worth it for me. Kendra is still like net neutral-ish maybe, and has a better, she had mentioned a couple of times, you know, things are selling better on eBay. So we're going to jump to the chat. That's kind of what I've been thinking about it and why I haven't jumped into it, because I have processes and I'm successful on Poshmark and eBay. Is that where I want to put my time? Okay, let's scroll all the way back up. I'm sorry, friends. I get so into these that I kind of forget about the chat. So thank you so much for joining all of us. Kendra's asked, what do you sell on Whatnot? And we got into that. Women's clothing. You did some Lululemon, high-end stuff.
Primarily clothes.
Time to spread out inventory to other platforms. I mean, it's a good way to increase your sell-through rate, right? Is the more platforms that you're on. Ken, did you do your first Whatnot show? How many items did you list? How many did you sell for your first shows? Did you lose money? So I think you've touched on some of this.
Right. I actually I pulled it up. 45 items on my first show. Sold 5,200 on my first show. My mind was blown.
Right. Which is why he kept going.
Right. Like at that point, I had 15% profit. I was like, that quick, that fast, right? So now in the back of my head, my business mind was like, volume, here you go, right? At that point, it don't matter what product you're selling, right? I mean, like, you're thinking, it don't matter if it's the most expensive shoe or the cheapest shoe. If you're looking at it as a business, looking at it without the attachment to sneakers, because it was actually the hardest thing I've ever done. Like, I love the sneakers. I mean, to Kendra's point, like, I could have made 100 more, right, on a different platform, but maybe 30 days later, right? And
okay, so we're talking quick flip, and I think, would you guys all agree, it's more of a quick flip for a lower profit?
Yeah, I mean, but if you have the avenue to get more product at a cheaper rate, now all of a sudden it's a printing machine, money printing machine. Right? Like, I've had t-shirts, but I'm gonna divulge it there. I've had t-shirts that I bought for $5 that sell on Whatnot consistently $11 to $15. and I've run 170 items in one show. So look at the profit, right? But those t-shirts won't sell on eBay for that much, and super
Oh.
slow sell through.
So then you're
Right.
moving. Yeah.
So now it's really not right. Like it's more of like finding that product that fits this model and that you're okay with the profit margin. Because again, like it's time versus money, right? At the end of the day, right? The most I've done was a $24,000 show, 2.5 hours. So I'm looking at it.
Right.
When will I do 24,000 in right in one show or in 1 month or 1 week? Like I've done 24,000 in a month on eBay, right? So it's like now I'm like looking at time, right? Can I just work 24 hours hard and then versus to 30 days of fulfilling items? And then because again, it's just a matter of the better buyer you become, the more profitable you get. End of story, right? Because the better your profit margins are, it don't matter where you sell it. Now it's a matter of how fast can you sell it and how fast can you buy. So that's where I'm at right now. It's like I could totally shift my whole business, which I haven't done because I don't want to be kind of like I don't want to be in that grind mode of buying as of the moment, which is available, but I don't want to. So that's where me and Sarah had that commonality. It's just a matter of what you really want, right? Like it's a matter of what you
And where you want to put the time, because you tell me a
Yeah.
2.5 hour show, and I'm imagining first of all being on camera for 2.5 hours, like doing that persona and being like, hey, yeah, that just sounds exhausting, first of all. And not to mention the amount of time that it took to buy
Yeah.
all of that inventory, get it organized. I don't know if you do listings or not, but getting it in there so they can at least buy it. And then I'm just imagining how many hours you spent shipping. And
Yeah,
like it's exciting, but like
yeah.
you're
I
probably
would say it's a
talking-
full day, right? Whether you spread out the listing over a month or whether you spread out the fulfillment of 170 items in 1 month, it takes the same time,
right, just in a
right?
different way. Like for me, I don't have a full day to
Yeah, it's just how you batch it, right? Like again, we don't have kids. Me and my wife are crazy enough to do this all in neck deep. So
well, and for you too, right? You spend the 1 day doing it, and then you guys have 6 days, and you can go on a vacation.
yeah,
or
and
go
we
for
love to travel. We're out of town 2 times a month. Like we're out of town like probably like 8 days a month.
Tori, were you going to say something?
I was just gonna say, okay, I'm off. Yeah, okay. So it really depends on your business model. So just listening what Ken's saying, I mean, that's like lots and lots of inventory. For me, I am very, Sarah, you said this, I'm concerned with time because my average cost of goods is about $5. Mm-hmm. So if I am on Whatnot and I'm selling things between, $1 and $10, which is, I mean, okay. And again, to level set, I did one show. I've watched a lot of shows. But these items, what I've found is people are expecting lower prices, or you don't have the people there to raise up the price. So for me, that business model isn't working because, the show that I did, I documented everything and it did. We spent, I made 121, sold 18 items. Average sale price was $462 and I spent 6.5 hours total. So when you're looking at all of that, for someone who's doing this like part-time as a part-time hustle, or even just as a full-time with higher priced goods, that doesn't work for that business model.
Right. And I mean, 2 points, maybe you do it for a couple months and then it would be worth it. But if you're already successful on Poshmark, and I think you probably have some handmade stuff on Etsy, but if you're already successful there, it may not be worth it for you. But if you're really just starting or you're wanting to venture out, it may be worth it. What I'm hearing from most people is to get successful, you are putting in probably upfront costs, like by losing money on inventory or giving things away, right, to get people there, and time. And then that's going to depend on your drive and if you do have a social media following from somewhere else, and which I think is important. And I think it's not something that's really been talked about and shared that I've seen in the community. You're seeing the people that are like, oh, I did $24,000 in 1 day. And I'm so excited, for Ken, of course, for doing that. But this is why I wanted to have different perspectives on. I'm not saying it's not a great place. I hope that a lot of you guys have success with it, but that as you get on, you're thinking about it's taking. And the other thing too, is I'd be interested to hear as well that there's only so much time in the day. So you're taking time away from eBay that is successful and losing money. It may be good in the long run. Investments have to be made in businesses. But these are things that I want everyone to be thinking about as they kind of think about whether they should get on Whatnot or not. I feel like it's a good tool to have, but it's not replacing any of my platforms. Things aren't selling for more than $10. So a lot of my following is clothing resellers. So I'm finding like Ken has sneakers that people want. And I think, as you said, it started with like collectibles and cards, which are things that like you can have that bidding war with. I don't think I can envision most of my stuff. You're not going to have a bidding war with a pair of American Eagle jeans. Like it's just not going to happen. That's not my inventory, which is another reason that for me, I'm like, I don't have an influx in inventory either. I think when I was doing pallets, it probably would have been good to where I keep the 30% that are going to sell really high for me on eBay. And then I can just offload at least for cost or maybe make a couple quick bucks on those. And I've talked to a couple of people who do pallets and that's kind of their business model. They have like a cult following, anything they post will sell. So she's talking about social media, like some of the bigger ones that are on there, anything they're buying the brand, not the product. For a lot of people, I think Ken's is the product. I've seen.
I don't see that yet on my end.
No, but I think yours is the product, is what I'm saying, because you're in the shoe and you get those bidding wars because you have like the shoe that no one can find.
Yeah, but also to preface, the trending products are a lot harder to get, right? Anything hype, right? Like LVs, they're hard to get, and when you get a hold of them, that's why you price it so much and would prefer the highest amount of profit on a different platform because it was hard to get. Right? Like if it was easy to get, I'd get that product over and over again and be a millionaire tomorrow, right? But I think, to Tori and Kendra's point is like, if it's a valuable item, like you don't want to short yourself, or you purposely short yourself for long-term gain.
Yes.
Right? Because what I've seen a lot of people that have good inventory, and what they do is their Whatnot is their lower end inventory. They ruin their brand and Whatnot. Now they're known as the off-brand brand. Like sneaker stores. Sneaker stores go and Whatnot and don't want to lose money, and they sell their used shoes that are like pretty much beat up. Now their brand and Whatnot tank. Now they're the beat up store. Now, if they run a hype item, they'll be like, it's probably next to a smelly shoe or a beat up shoe, right?
That's valid. That's really
valid. Like now, all of a sudden, like it shipped. So for me, I've always prided myself to own. I have used items, but I've only said I'm only gonna put up curated, like fashionable, kind of like a runway show. That's how I see it. A runway show that I prepped for that night, and that way, like it's well thought of. But for people that throw stuff at it and just like whatever, it becomes your brand. Like, oh, you're the random guy. Oh, and then Glenn, perfect example. He's a sneaker seller, but he came in there. I want to be known as the hat guy. Now he's the hat guy. So
it's a lot more strategic planning than
very. It's super strategic than what you think.
Right. Like a social media. So even if you don't have
it is social media selling. Yeah.
Right. Which is exhausting. And I can see why people don't want to do this. And this is just proving to someone, I think one of you guys said this as well. Sometimes I go and sit in someone's show and that doesn't have many people so that was an interesting perspective from a buyer's perspective, what they're looking at because they're wanting a deal. And I think it depends on what they're looking at. Sneakers, to Ken's point that we were just talking about, he's going to get those bidding wars because of the product that he has, but he's spending more time finding these products than I play more of a volume game of I'll just sell $20 jeans and people aren't doing bidding wars over it. Ken, do you think having mini Whatnot shows a week helps you be successful on Whatnot?
For me, I haven't tried it. I've seen a lot of people do it. I think it's good, but I think you have to look at your category, like who's the biggest in your category, and see where you stack. For me, as soon as I hit like 9,000 followers, it's been so hard to get it over. Because it's kind of like our categories for 8 months old, something like that. So, even jumping to other streams, when they say like, oh, Hustlebee's here, like it's good to know to be recognized, but that's knowing that everybody's followed you or everybody recognized you. So for me, there's not much to be gain. So as soon as I start realizing that, I pretty much pull back on a lot of my giveaways because right, follower giveaway for follow, there's not much. Right, for me it was $1 per acquisition is what I did. So if I give away $200 shoe, if I get 200 followings, great. Next thing you know, I give $200 item. It's only 50 followers. I'm like, this is not great. So I pull back. I'm giving out a t-shirt next time.
And I like how you break it down too, because we talk like these high level, like, oh, but to hear those numbers, and obviously they're going to be different for everyone. But that kind of gives you kind of a threshold as well too. I think if you get a seller you like, it feels like you're buying back their brand. And so I do think I can see this being successful. If others are going to maybe start taking it on, seeing the success on Whatnot, I would probably be a little bit more apt to do it if it was a platform that I was on that I already knew, and it wasn't a lot of extra work to figure out, right, how to do it, because that's time consuming up front. Worth it for some people. My lifestyle, I'm not trying to add time, I'm trying to get my time back. I think, let me see if we have questions. I've done TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Whatnot advertising, awful turnouts. It's interesting to hear. So I think there's definitely a lot of strategy behind it. I'm not a marketing person. I'm not a social media. I don't even have social media personally, which people are like, oh, you're on social media all the time. I'm like, for work. But like me personally, I don't consume a lot of it. So if it's not really your forte, then this just may not be the platinum platform for you. I want to give a shout out. Resellers Passion Leslie is also one of my all-time favorite people. And I haven't been doing many lives, so I haven't seen her in a while. I actually rebranded for Whatnot. I am a reworker's passion on Whatnot. I upcycle, rework, and create sustainable items. I mix my reselling items. I sell more as a handmade seller. I mix regular items. So that's interesting. It's definitely coming out of this conversation that it's about a branding and not just. It's more about the branding and who you are to make it successful than I think what you sell is helpful. But not so much like having good SEO and a good list. It's a different, you're spending your time in a different way, right? This is my husband, if you haven't guessed, Mr. Siles. I have so much anxiety around the thought of managing all those social channels. You are all amazing in being able to manage. Well, thank you. Let's see.
And Sarah, just to interrupt. So Leslie also mentioned down, if you look down the comments, that she replaced multiple platforms with Whatnot. And I think that's interesting too, because she's doing handcrafted items. And that's another avenue that is totally different. We haven't really talked about, but it's, you have the sneakers that are popular, you have just the regular clothing, but then you have this, whole community of makers that can show what they're doing, and that is an avenue that is super cool and interesting. So I love what she's doing there.
I'd love to be a painter right now. I think painting it live and selling it live.
Yes.
Imagine I could just paint all day. If I love painting, I'd paint all day and sell it.
Well, then you get much more personal, like a lot of handcrafted, especially right now, people want to support small businesses. So it's smart that she did that. And it's good to hear, I'm interested to know if Leslie, she has a social media following as well. I don't know exactly how big it is, but I know that she definitely has. She has podcasts, she has YouTube. I don't know that she does much YouTube, but she is on social media. So I wonder how quickly that came to light, because she does have that. Okay, I do want to jump into a few questions. I do have to pick up my kids, so we can't really run too far over because they will be stuck at school. So I want to talk a little bit about, we've talked, I think definitely you have to brand, and it's a different kind of reselling, whether you want to spend your time into that or you want to spend your time taking photos and listing. I think it's kind of just where you spend your time. You're likely going to have to put in some upfront cost, time, and money to be successful. But I feel like that's with most platforms, that you're going to have to learn it. I want to talk a little bit about the back end processes and time that's involved in it. Because you say, hey, I sold this much in an hour show, but it wasn't really an hour. I mean, it was an hour show, but to me, Ken had told me when we were chatting a couple of weeks ago, I sold 300 items, and I was like, that would take me 3 days to ship. Right? Like, that sounds awful to me from a money perspective. Yes. Like, I would obviously love, but that's what I sell in a month. And there's no way that I would be able to ship 300 items the next day.
And we're not going to do it again. We did it once and we're not going to do it again.
Right.
I learned my lesson.
Which is amazing that you could, but I want to talk. So if you guys want to talk a little bit about doing a show, everything that kind of goes into it for people who aren't on the app at all. Are you listing the items? Are you putting them in? Are you just showing them how to, kind of the back end processes, and then associate a time with it?
I guess so. For me, I take one picture and you could post it in your store. I give a quick description. I make sure I put the size, the brand, and what it is. And then I always disclose if there's any. I try not to, but I always just disclose if there's any flaws, because it's really nice on Whatnot. If you don't know, you can have your items in the store and people can go in and make pre-bids before your show even starts. And the more details you have about your items, the better chance that somebody might go in and make a pre-bid before your item actually starts. But I honestly, maybe if I put more work into it, I'd get more followers. But like I said, I do one picture. I do a quick short title and description. With my t-shirts and my pants, t-shirts, I give measurements, armpit to armpit, and length, so people have an idea of what the measurements are, but I don't share that until the live. And that does take time to like set aside and put those measurements in. Same with like the inseam on my pants. Those take a little bit of time to do. The actual show, it's fun for me to interact, but I'm not gonna lie, to do like 30 items takes me 30 minutes to an hour. I mean, you can set your own time for how long you want to do each individual auction for. I think the lowest time you can do is like 10 seconds. And it goes all the way up to like 1 or 2 minutes. And then there's choices like, there's like sudden death where when it ends at 0, it just ends. But then there's another option where if people bid on your item, it'll bump your clock up like 5 to 10 seconds. So if you have an item like that and it keeps getting bid on, that could add an extra minute to 2 minutes per listing. But yeah, I'm going to say, pardon?
Just time in the show.
Yeah.
So I want to, I know you may not know these numbers, but just off your head.
Yeah.
How long it takes you to do an eBay listing versus how long it would take you to do all of that for a Whatnot show?
So I list, if I'm going to be honest, I list about 25 items per day, and I do everything in one day. I clean it right there that day, and then I like lint roll it. I list those items. It takes me, for pictures and listings for 25 items, it takes me about 2 hours. I don't know if that's a good average or that's just what works for me. And it takes me for 30 items on Whatnot to do all that, including listing everything in my store. It takes me like 4 or 5 hours because I preload everything 2 or 3 days before the initial thing goes live, because that way people can go in and pre-bid on your stuff. And then you still have to go in and sell the item and ship it, versus when you have eBay, you put your listing up, you don't got to touch it until somebody buys it. You got to like inventory it, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's more,
time-wise.
Yeah, time-wise, but it's nice because you're getting rid of your item right now. You don't have to worry about putting it into inventory and waiting for it and waiting for inventory to clear up so you can put more stuff into your inventory. Like, you're getting rid of it right now. But time-wise, if you break it down per hour, I might make like $20 an hour. Maybe.
As compared to?
For 30 items. Yeah. As to like eBay, I can make like $50 to $100 an hour. Right. Like, I'm established daily on eBay, but when it comes to Whatnot, like, I'd rather get a part-time job sometimes. Like, sometimes this is not worth it.
Yeah. So it would be a good way, like if you just have access to large quantities and in and out the door, it's like, right, a quick flip or the long game, which definitely is not my business. That would not work for me. I don't have time. And if you have the time, right? Like if time is short. All right. Ken, let's hear what your time, and compare, you're just on eBay. So kind of compare it to.
Right. So eBay is, we batch list. So on eBay, on a regular eBay, we pretty much work like 2 to 3 days a week on eBay style, because the other days we're just out buying, which is buying, shopping. I actually don't consider that work, because of the nature of the business. I literally just go in stores and shop, right? So with Whatnot, we're at a point that we can get a show together, listed, preview, photo, in 2 hours. So I could be like, hey babe, let's go live in 2 hours and get that going. So we're ready.
This is the team of 2, just to be clear. Ken works with his wife.
Yeah. To give you a perspective, like this is like 45 to 50 items, right? and this would sell for 1,000 to 12,000. And then fulfillment is, it would be like, I'm looking at my stats, it would be like 30 to 40 packages for us. So around
So you
300 to
found a
400.
way. I mean, it seems like you found ways to be pretty efficient with it. So as you've been doing it
Right,
for and better,
exactly. Like at
and this
first
is
it
really
wasn't, right? Like, I
yeah.
mean, we did a 170 item show. It efficiency went down because we were tired, right? Because it was too long of a show. Next thing you know, I had to put it off for next day and actually ship. So what we do now is we actually like, we take kind of like power naps before a show, uh, list a show, preview a show, you know, take an espresso, do the hour to hour and a half. That's my max, hour and a half.
Yeah.
And then we would take an hour or two to fulfill the items after the show. And this is mostly, our show happens between 6 to midnight every day. So by the next morning, I'm a free man.
Yeah, which
I
is amazing for you. I'm thinking 6 to
So I
midnight.
get my
I'm done
time
with
back
life.
from the upfront until we do another show. But now we do 3 to 4 shows a week, so we could actually do a Saturday or one day and pre-plan all that show, and I'm pretty much free till the show happens.
So it seems like for you guys, it's really like you have made it work for your lifestyle.
Yeah, so it's just accepting that, but the caveat is, it's accepting that our eBay sales and listing activity has went down 70%.
Yeah, because
So
now you
did
don't have to make
revenue,
a list.
right? Hindsight, right? But to put your perspective, in the short span amount of time I've done on Whatnot, I've done last year's eBay's revenue.
So eBay's gone down, but overall,
Overall
and are we
revenue has gone up, right?
so
But
we're talking gross, but
yeah,
net, because you're taking less on Whatnot, is your net
but
gone
still
up as well?
more overall net because I've pushed more products throughout a 6 month period of time,
So you're doing more. Okay.
right? So now it's just a matter of like, how far back can I scale it? So now we're in a kind of like a crossroad where we are actually trying to get our eBay back to a manageable size. To, let's say, I don't want to be no 70% down on eBay. I want to be like only 50% down operational wise.
Yeah.
Because I'm a true believer, the more you do it, the more efficient you become. That's why eBay is like easy cake for us, right?
Right.
3 years of going hard. Whatnot, 6 months of going hard. If I figure it out like this already, I'm like, imagine what I could do in 3 years. So I guess the thinking of it long term and short term.
Mhm.
Short term, I can get quick cash. I told Sarah we don't have savings, but I can liquidate my inventory tomorrow and buy a house the next day.
Yeah.
So, but it's all in inventory. So now it's, I guess, if you're, for me, where I'm looking at it, I'm staying in this game as long as I can and I want to. So might as well get a 3 year plan, right? So that's my perspective. And again, we could look back at this a year or two later and be like, man, that guy crazy, right?
Well, I'll have everyone back next year. So mark this
Let's
on
do
your
that.
calendar, and we'll see if Whatnot's even really around anymore.
Right.
So we do have a question. How do you get accepted? Oh, Tori, I skipped over you. Do you want to talk about your time? I know you did the one show, and it was pretty time consuming compared to what it would take you on like Poshmark.
Yeah, and I think just with the one show, those statistics aren't going to be really.
I didn't want to skip over you though.
No, and I already told it earlier, so we're good. We're good.
Okay. How do you get accepted to sell? So I think I could ask, this could go on for 2 hours if I didn't have to pick my kids up. So maybe if people are interested, we could come back and have another show. I will say, give everyone on here a follow. We have more questions. This is not a wrap up, but do give everyone on here a follow. Their social media is linked down below, and they're very active on social media. So if you guys have follow-up questions, definitely feel free to reach out to, I hope that's okay. Definitely free to reach out, or you can leave comments if you're watching this after, or we've ended and you are still having questions, leave them down below. I probably will not be able to answer them, but I will make sure that one of these wonderful sellers come back and answer for you. So how do you get accepted to sell? We have about 5-6 minutes left. So if you guys do have questions, make sure to leave them in the chat. I've seen seasoned sellers get rejected and then see sellers get accepted who don't even know how to ship. What are they looking for?
It's a problem across the board, really. I think. I mean, I mean, like even influencers don't know how to ship because they don't run a business,
Mhm.
right? At least in my category, right? I could just make sneaker videos all week, but I don't know how to ship a sneaker because I'm not a seller.
Oh, so like not just reseller influencers are coming
Yeah,
in.
no, like just
Oh, I didn't thought of that.
right? Yeah, so
So do they have like different levels of like this is like on eBay you'd be like a top rated seller plus to know that the buyer knows that you know how to do this, or
right now they're doing verified sellers. Um, so that's what they have right now. But again, it's very the rating is actually pretty clear. I think it's kind of like Poshmarky, right? Like you have stars and then days to ship. So you know if you're above 4 stars and then days to ship under 1 day, and then people would definitely really follow you for that.
So they've grown, and this is something I think I've answered most of the questions. Oh, that's Tori and Leslie going back and forth. So I think we've answered most of the questions. If you guys do have a question, leave it in the chat, leave it in the comments down below. I don't want to have any questions unanswered. But as we were talking about this, things that I've heard in talking with people as well, they have grown exponentially fast, right? Which is awesome, but there's also a lot of issues that come with that kind of on the back end. So if you guys, I mean, I don't want this to be a like, let's bash them. And if there's things that you don't feel comfortable sharing, but if you guys have any insight, I think this brought up some of it is they don't know who to accept, who not to accept, how to tell, have people ship, so that people do come on and say, hey, I know that I'm going to get a product that's shipped. Is there other things that you're noticing that they're kind of having hiccups with? I don't want it to be a bashing session, but just so people who are interested in getting on really know.
So for me, so this is weird. And I never have more than like 30 watchers at a time, but I have these weird spasms while the live stream is going. So one of the things that it does is it boots me off and it'll end my live and it flips my camera around. So I mean, luckily my backyard is beautiful, but it'll flip you around and everybody will see my backyard. And then it'll flip you around, but it'll do that mid-auction. And I've reached out, I've tried to get it fixed. They fixed it one time and I did 2 shows and it was fine. And then I've recently jumped back on and it still does it. And like I've watched people that have like 500 to 1,000 people in their live shows and no glitches. They have no issues. But then a little guy, it just gets glitchy. It's so
use
annoying.
iOS or Android?
It's Android.
Yeah, it's the Android thing. I actually bought an iPhone for this. I'm an Android user, but I have an iPhone to stream. No issues.
Smart.
Yeah, it is the Android because it's a priority. All the features gets launched in Android. In iOS,
First.
and then Android is lagging behind. Yeah.
That's valid. So, but it's not good that you had that experience, but what is promising, at least to me, as if should I get on this, you were able to talk to someone, which there's platforms that you cannot talk to people. And they were able to
seller. I mean the response for seller customer service A1.
Okay, which is good because if they're new and they're growing and they're having difficulties, at least you can get some help, even as a smaller-ish seller, not just these big people.
Yeah, they encourage that, Sarah. During orientation, you actually have a group. And so the person gives you their like personal, I mean, from my experience, their personal contact information. That's the business, but they're really responsive. And they do say in orientation that this is kind of like, it's a startup. So there are going to be glitches, but they're really receptive to feedback and getting back to them. So customer service, I will say, is a plus there.
That's awesome. I am going to wrap it up. I don't see any other questions in the chat. I have appreciated everyone's perspective. I hope everyone who's watching has really appreciate it as well and had some thought on whether they want to do it or not. My purpose of my channel is not telling you what to do. It's giving you the education to make a decision that's right for your business. And I think everyone here had very valid points for their different business model, as well as the people in the chat. So I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this. Let us know where we can find you. Their Instagram is down below, but if you guys would like to promote your next Whatnot show, feel free to do that and come back and put it in the comment as well if you guys want to direct people that way as well, or anything else you want to let people know before we sign off. I'll go to you, Kendra. If there's anything, do you want?
No. I'm good. I have a Whatnot show tomorrow.
Yep. Promote your show.
Is it the same name? What's your name on Whatnot?
It's just Michigan inspired.
Okay.
Yep.
Then follow me at the Hustle Bee. If you guys want fire sneakers, we're doing it later tonight.
Maybe I need some sneakers. We'll see.
Oh,
I'll jump in.
Does JC get on the shows as well, or is it just you?
Oh, she's walking around behind the scene. I mean, you'll see her. She'll say hi to the people there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a two-man show for sure. And she
It
like
is, yeah.
everyone needs a JC in their life. I need to find one. She like has it together in the back end, which is why I'm like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't have a JC that does all that for me.
Mr. Styles, where you at?
No, Mr. Styles is not. I mean, you heard him.
Off
He
limits.
supports it. He supports it, but he doesn't want much to do with it. He'll do the numbers stuff sometimes. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. I am doing a live next week as well on eBay Open. So eBay Open starts on Wednesday. So we'll be coming when it's over with two people that I went to eBay headquarters with. So we will be sharing, I don't want to say dirt because there's not really dirt or gossip, but we'll be sharing kind of our experience at eBay headquarters, things that we learned straight from eBay executives, as well as kind of a wrap up to day one of eBay Open. That is up, so you guys can hit the notifications for that as well. And then I have a big announcement tomorrow that's up, so go ahead and hit a notification for that as well. And I hope everyone has a wonderful Wednesday. Thank you guys.
Bye, everyone.